Hello, and welcome everyone to this week's episode of an VNture podcast. I am your host, Taros113, alongside MR. And together, we are going to be exploring discussions and topics involved in visual novels. This week, we're going to be covering the production value in VNs. Everyone knows visual novels for their writing, of course, but there's all sorts of other aspects, the pizzazz, the flashiness, the artistry involved in these visual novels, and today we're going to cover some of the titles we've read and how they've really struck out to us in terms of production values. So, MR, why don't you take it away? What's one example that you have of a VN with some stellar production values?
Oh god, I get a free reign to talk about Muv-Luv again. Yeah, I was waiting for this day.
Yep, but that's a good one.
In all seriousness, to this day, I can't believe it's a title made in 2004. It's crazy to me how this VN oozes quality. The attention to detail it has, it's on such a high note. Even such absurdly minor detail as when the protagonist, Jafarero, is walking through some pipe tunnels and the water reflects the metallic surface, and that changes the illumination around the sprites of the characters that are currently talking. Like, it took me a while to understand why my screenshots that I did during the conversation don't align in color. Because it was such a minute thing to do. It's crazy.
That's some incredible attention to detail, yes.
Yeah. To quickly recap, for those who do not know the Muv-Luv, is a story of a certain high school boy living the typical high school life, and nothing surely would change, right? The game would not completely do a switcheroo in Runner later on. As it is with Muv-Luv, it does actually happen, imagine that, and the game becomes so much more than just high school hijinks. But it aids to see how crazy it is that in between those extra segments and Unlimited, when you jump from the one title to another, it accounts for whose route you finished last in order to change the aspect of a story, of how it starts. And I tested that. Yeah, it is reflected there. It changes who you first meet and what kind of body language the other characters will use towards you. And the mere fact that it changes how their sprites are portrayed to you. Do they have the claws, hands, or maybe open arms, or maybe along their body? It changes depending on how you interacted with the previous game. Like, I was so flabbergasted when I first heard it and tested, and yeah, I see some changes.
But that's not terribly unusual for visual novels, especially sequels, to pick up where you were from the previous game. What you mentioned earlier, like with Muv-Luv's, their video game system or their engine, the one that allowed for like illumination changes in the reflecting water, like you mentioned. That's something that's still unbelievable to me from a visual novel that was released in 2004. There's so much it does, right?
Yep, exactly. And you see it utilized in the latter portions that utilizes a lot of moving parts in vehicles, elevators. Yeah, they are part of the story. You see the elevator running up, things move. Even something as simple as UI that is displayed for you changes because people communicate with you, they appear as a window, they disappear, they do their part, something switches. Everything is so natural of how it animates and moves. In addition to how it reflects. Yeah, you have a window, it casts a light, and you see that reflected in some metallic surface. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
I remember how amazingly immersive. The very first time you venture into the arcade machine for the Valgern On, the video game in which the main protagonist likes to play mechs and fight other mechs. And the attention to detail of the experience is crazy. You feel like you're logging into a cockpit of an arcade game. All that stuff, like something as trivial as please fasten your seatbelts. This is the first thing you hear. Then insert your ID card. Then choose a stage. Pick a title. Everything is there to account for. And as you are enclosed in that machine, the interface ahead of you as a player, you read it exactly as you would interact with it as a player there. Like, wow. So cool. So cool.
It's very detailed with the whole point of just a simple thing of the main character getting into the arcade booth to play this mecha game. But they've got it all laid out with like the joysticks and all the indicator buttons and the big old screen at every step.
Yep.
They didn't cut corners.
They did not. Even the something I did not even think about, how the keyboard and input is different for Japanese, in which they have some transformation because they're hiragana, katakana, and English alphabet. Yeah, everything's there. Yeah, that's exactly.
Well,
choose.
Well, I think that's a lot more impressive for us because it was obviously created by a Japanese company for Japanese audiences, and they just had to list their keyboard. That's what they use.
Okay, fair enough, but that means they did not cut corners. They meticulously showed the process. But they didn't chicken out. They didn't simplify it. No, they should. Yeah, this is how they switch. They do between those alphabets and character sets. Yeah, that's how they do it. Like, I was like, I dig it. Like, that's crazy to me. One of my personal.
Oh, yes, there's another aspect about Muv-Luv that I really love that has stuck with me all this time. Is that frequently there are multiple character sprites on the screen. Because, it's a group of people talking.
Yeah.
And in several other VNs, you'll have these several character sprites on the screen. And, one of the sprites will probably be illuminated when that character is talking to signify he's talking. And all the other characters just kind of stand there and they're all lined up in a row.
Yep.
Muv-Luv was the only series where they had these characters like on different levels, where like some characters would be standing in the background. And their character sprites would even have their heads turned and looking at each other. You'd even get some sprites with their back towards the camera. So in the background, you'd see like a group of 3 of them, and 2 of them are facing forwards and 1 of them's facing back. And they're all, like I said, they're more in the background. Well, the main character is talking in the foreground with someone else. And you're having this conversation with this whatever girl's in the foreground. And you can tell just by the other characters' body language and their facial expressions that they're having their own conversation that you can't hear, that you're not a part of. But just as you go line by line, it's like they're having some animated discussion and they're reacting in crazy ways. And it's like, oh my God. It's such a cool way for them to be feel like they're doing something, to make this scene feel a lot more livelier than just a typical visual novel where they're just cardboard cutouts just standing waiting for their turn.
A lot of that is showcased in Classroom. Whenever there was an event in which there were many groups of people gathered, you could see that during your conversation with your group, another group's conversation was advancing. People were rotating. People were doing something. Someone was added to the group. Someone went out of the group. And even the conversation you were, right? And in the example that you brought up, if you have 3 characters, one is little further in the background, but you still hear her, right? There you have someone who's closer in to you, and you speak to her first, so the closer character, right? Okay, so you have a conversation with 2 people, and the third person that is in the back listens. But then she wants to add something up. So what happens, and it's supernatural, obviously, but to me, reading the VN, I was surprised. Like, the character that was close to you rotates to face someone who speaks because it's no longer you.
In the background.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And what? That's so unexpected in VNs. That's not standard.
Oh no, yeah, exactly. That's why God. There's you mentioned the attention to detail Muv-Luv has, and it's just with the basic character sprites. And just with whatever engine they have that lets them move the characters around just like a sliding board.
Yeah. And to me, one of the funniest aspects to always keep track of is those characters with their special crazy poses. And Mickey had a lot of those, her charging up mentally and physically and showing like, I'll now do something crazy fun. And the other one that I deeply remember, and it's probably one of my favorite usage of Ahoga in conversation, is window talk with Sumika when she's sulking. She's very depressed, and you can see the Ahoga is like, it's very droopy, right?
Yes, it's one of those scenes where Takeru is talking with Sumika, and they're each in their bedrooms, the windows facing each other across the alley.
Exactly.
And she's, she's sulking and sitting on the ground, and all you can see is that one cowlick sticking out the top of her head.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Well, normally, exactly. Where normally in this conversation you can see her sprite because she's on that window talking with you. But in that one specific moment, all you can see is her Ahoga, that cowlick that is sticking out, and it's very droopy to indicate that's a very poor mood, right? And Takeru, being Takeru, tries to cheer her up. He kind of fails at the start, but then he mentioned that, whatever you did with that lunch, it tasted good. That was amazing work. And her Ahoga immediately changes to a heart symbol. That was such a... I just can't explain how wholesome of a moment that was with such a, I would say, trivial thing to show. Just change some sprites and then reflect a mood in accordance to people saying things. Like, it was such a good thing.
The main character praises her, and then you just see like the emotions spelled out on her cowlick.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh my god, that was so cool.
There is a serial comic strip called Pearls Before Swine. Which it's a comic strip. It mostly involves a few stylized basic animals with their own personalities, main characters, and they're talking about various stuff, and they get into comedic situations and gags.
All right.
One of the characters is a pig. Is not literally, not like a photorealistic pig, but more a cartoon pig with long droopy ears.
Yeah.
The artist mentioned that like a year or so into drawing his strip, he realized the power of making pigs' ears so expressive. Like if a character suddenly pops up on the side and Pig turns and he's shocked, and it's just he's got the shocked expression and stuff, but then you also draw the ears out to be like whoosh, way wild and flailing. And he realized that, adding that kind of emotion with his ears added so much more to the impact. And I feel like that's a lot of what you get with Sumika in this scenario, like you mentioned with her Ahoge. And also with Tama's giant pink twin tails. Like you mentioned in like her power-up poses, where she gets into that fighting stance and then they just explode behind her in energy. It adds so much. And again, it's just those little things you see in just her normal sprites that just take things up an extra level.
Exactly, and it helps sell that hyper energy of hers and that enthusiastic approach to life. Like, nothing you could describe sells it more than just that pose.
Tama was so precious in Muv-Luv.
Yeah,
definitely one of my favorite characters for just how much antics she got up to.
I absolutely wholeheartedly agree. Like, whoa, it's just very, very cool character.
Yeah, and as you can see in some of these background sliding portions up on YouTube, Muv-Luv Alternative also has several cutscenes. It actually has animated portions, like a highly detailed anime series.
Yeah, and they don't behave like a cutscene. Like it's not pre-rendered that is a display for you, but rather it uses the VN elements that are moving parts.
Mm-hmm.
Because they also have dedicated cutscenes that acts like movies that you can skip with a skip movie.
Yes.
But not those segments. Those are made to look like cutscenes built upon VN elements moving in parallel to each other. It creates such a great atmosphere when it just clicks.
Yeah, like you have the camera moving around like a canvas instead of the typical VN style where it's just literally always static.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and speaking of alternative, although I'm not now sure if it's an unlimited alternative, but somewhere around those lines, I vividly remember a scene that was shown in bad weather. So it was snowing all over the place. You have obscured vision. But in that obscured vision, you spot an agent of sorts. Okay, so you approach the guy and start talking with him. And your sniper partner is aiming with a laser sight. Right? So okay, this is a situation, freeze, let's talk, but we have a sniper, let's know that. Okay, don't do funny things, right? Don't do anything suspicious. Mm-hmm. But the way they animated the entire scene, when the snow was blowing, the red dot wasn't static, the perfect start. No, it was just jittering, such realistically and distorted by the snow and wind. Oh, that moment was super impressive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's just all those little things. Again, for a visual novel that came out 2004.
Yes,
to just make their own like freaking video game engine for this or something.
Yep.
Just to have just little bits of movement in the right places to make these scenes feel so much livelier.
Yeah, and those scenes just pop immediately. Oh, so yeah, we just can't. We can't stay on the movie because I'll just keep talking, right? So Tauros, give me some examples.
All right.
I want stuff.
Love the series that deserves it, but yes, we'll talk about some other ones too.
Yeah.
Let me see.
What did you bring?
Yes, I wanted to talk about a neat little indie title called Snow Dome. It is an amateur indie project. It's a main character is a man living his kind of dead-end job and a kind of crummy life. But one night, he goes out at the nearby beach and he stumbles upon a beautiful singing voice. He follows it and comes across some like massive, just industrial metallic structure. And upon entering it and exploring the place, he finds a girl named Ashwei. I think it's a Chinese name. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Please forgive me if I don't. He bonds with this strange girl, and she has it out against the world and its evil technology, so she's a little bit of a weirdo, but still, he sticks around with her. And as the story develops, he can't shake the feeling that there really is something wrong in this world. And so it's an interesting title. It's one of those VNs that I always love when they can successfully pull off just a normal daily life, but things seem just a little bit off about it. And you're doubting yourself about like, well, is it really, or am I just kind of imagining or reading too much into this?
Something just doesn't feel quite right.
Exactly, and you're never sure whether to commit on board or to see what the main character does. But either way, like I mentioned, this was very much an amateur work, but it has a few cool UI elements, like with the how it brings up the quick screen, how it has, like an octagon of symbols for quickly going through the game options. It's just the little simple things like that really give it some flair. But the main one I wanted to point out is that, just like Muv-Luv, it also makes use of a fluid camera. The main character's normal, everyday, boring scenes are usually shot in static form with, your static character sprites and the static text and the typical music. But it has some wondrous magical parts, especially with Ashway, that make use of the 3D like Unity camera. How it sweeps from the side to the side, or maybe it bounces along the scenery. Or a few times when like it zooms in into a part and then pulls back out into a normal VN view.
To those of you listeners who see this podcast on YouTube, we specifically picked up one part to showcase that effect, right? So it's running in the background, so you can see what the Taurus is describing.
Like I said at the beginning, when he comes across the beach at night and hears her voice and explores the metallic structure, that's I guess that's like one of the VN's establishing moments where it fully utilizes its camera work. And they saved that. The developers really went for the strong impact with that one. For this just establishing this VN, and it hit me hard. That was a point where I was like, oh man, this VN's got something special. I need to check this out.
I see. So that was their hook, which they got you.
Yeah, they got it.
Nice.
I was hooked in. This is an indie title. It's somewhat on the short side. I want to say it's like 4 or 5 hours or so. And it's an indie project. It has very pretty art for what it has. The backgrounds are, typical background stuff. But really, why I'm mentioning it here with a video about, stellar production values is because I really enjoy the little things that visual novels can accomplish. It's one thing to have like a AAA project with millions of dollars put in for, the artistry and the rousing music and all the incredible technological breakthroughs and whatnot. And that's impressive. Don't get me wrong. That's incredible to view. I also have a soft spot for like the indie titles made on a shoestring budget that pushes the limits of the tools they have available to them. Like this is made in Unity, and just the way that it can utilize the camera work like this makes its little scenes hit harder. They can leave so much more of an emotional strain, for better, or, negatively as the story calls for it. And how well they ties in these little artistic camera work and other elements just enhances the story.
Yeah, and you mentioned that those cinematic moments, let's call them for now, right?
Sure.
They happen during the magical moments, right?
Yes.
Would you describe them as supernatural moments? Magical in a spectacular sense?
That's the question, isn't it? Is it supernatural?
Right? Because it says that, because it's so different, it says that on that otherworldly vibe, right?
Yes.
It's so detached in a certain way from how rest is presented.
Mm-hmm. Like at night, or, talking with Ashway about some weird stuff, or devising plans for the future, or talking about that one coworker he has who doesn't quite seem honest about everything. The things where his normal daily life, tears a little at the seams.
I see. Okay.
So yes, it's like I said, it's the little things like that, that I really admire, and that's the sort of outside the box thinking I always love to see from indie projects.
Yep.
Like Snowdome.
It's definitely something that shows. It shows the attention to detail and how it sells on the atmosphere. Yep.
Overall, I enjoyed it, especially. Well, I don't want to get into spoilers or possible implications or whatnot. I'll just say, especially in the ending half, I guess the back half, ending third or whatever, when
latter portion.
Yeah, latter portions too, where again this VN starts showing off some of its capabilities.
Ooh.
But yeah, I mean that's just what I wanted to say. I don't have nearly as much to gush about this title as I do like Muv-Luv, for example. And deservedly so for Muv-Luv. But I do want to say that, it's been a while since I've read Snowdome, but even then, it's still left an impact on me.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you want to recognize, especially in the studio, who managed to do something very unique right? And you describing that in such a way kind of makes me want to try it, right? Especially given that you tend to read shorter titles, so it wouldn't maybe be that much of a commitment as my usual epochs are.
Shorter indie stuff. Aside
Yeah,
from
exactly.
MR, who's off like rereading his Venus Blood Total Destruction Annihilation Conquest
Yeah, exactly.
for the 50th
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. This is me.
But that's okay, you know. The stuff you like and the stuff I like.
Yeah.
All the stuff in between.
Speaking of likes, and more so, speaking of selling on the atmosphere, I brought another example, and it's Maitetsu.
Ooh.
Oh god. I really love this title. It's so gorgeous, and it tries to sell you on every encounter you get. Okay, what I mean by that. I vividly remember at every time a dialogue was running near an active machine, such a plane or a train, it was accounted for with the background noise they produce. Absolutely stellar work there. And just a quick recap, Maitetsu is a fantasy sci-fi near future kind of deal, or maybe alternative reality in which the most popular mode of transportation is personal plane. It's called aircraft, and it's like an aircraft but smaller aircraft. And its popularity pushed use of locomotives or trains in general out of commission. No one used that. It's too clunky. It cannot rival. So that's the setup. And the protagonist, when cleaning shelves, finds an ancient relic of the past of trains in form of a rail lord. It was a machine, human-like machine, who helped guide systems between trains. So again, it's like alternative reality, kind of fantasy, but based upon technology of trains of current times. So it's just mix of all of those things. But it sells the atmosphere and it has so much detail in all it does. In addition to, yes, I'll mention it, and I'll call back the zany UI video. The UI is such a live glossary that you can incorporate inside your own game. What I mean by that is, in typical game with glossaries and encyclopedia, when there is a term you want to research, check more of, you just open that glossary and read it. But in Maitetsu, what happens, you can open pop-up windows in which the character, I don't remember is it predetermined or the one that are you currently with, will explain that to you, and then you continue dialogue. You don't interrupt you reading the entire script. You have like, okay, there's conversation going on, you need additional info, you click it, pop up, explanation, goodbye. You don't change the screens at all. It's so incorporated inside the entire UI. It's like, it tries, and for many, it succeeds in indoctrinating people to say, yeah, I love trains now, okay?
One reason when people are reading like books, they're usually adverse to pulling up a dictionary for any words they don't read because they don't want to interrupt the story. Exactly. They see the word and they don't read, and it's like, I don't want to bust out this big old heavy book and then flip the pages and then find this one, and then look up a definition. It's like, I'm reading. I want to get to the story now. I'm engrossed. So when you have a system like Maitetsu where it has this glossary that automatically pops up for these, technical terms, that takes out the biggest barrier. And now you can do both. You can enjoy this story and you can seamlessly learn about all these cool options as well.
Yeah, it's stellar. I like, wow, it feels natural. And sometimes you even forget sometimes. So you can have a refresher. And if the term appears again, you can click it again. Yeah. Wow. Yes, I want more of those systems. It's so good. It's so good. Okay, fine. I'll admit if they do it the regular way, I'll also read it. Okay, I'll admit you have me there. But this one, oh, I want this one.
Okay.
Yeah. But going back to minute details and accounting for just small things. The first time it happened in my Tetsu, I was super confused. Imagine there's conversation between two characters, and you say, oh, hello, or goodbye, or pay respects, and then the camera lowers. I'm like, what the hell is happening? And I was confused and then it clicked, wait, he was bowing. Your protagonist was bowing, and his viewpoint changed. And after that clicked, I was very observant of how they manipulate camera. And yes, camera always reflected the viewpoint of protagonist, meaning if he needed to kneel to fix something in a machine, or maybe to lower his viewpoint to talk with someone short on their level, every time camera accounted for it and changed the viewpoint. That was mind-blowing. Such a cool thing.
Again, it's just it's the little things that leave an impact on you even years later, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Now, they tried some things that looked janky, because they, for example, tried to animate some people shaking their head from left to right, and even animating how the nose moves with that. And it kind of looks weird, to be frank. But they tried.
They tried dipping their toes into live 2D animation, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think this is also something that comes from live 2D, but I'm not sure. They made sure that when you have an active character, let's say, because in VNs, in vast majority of cases, only one character speaks at a time, right?
Right.
So if you have an active character, they made sure that in my Tetsu, characters that are not active speakers react to that person speaking with an action. So for example, if someone salutes and says something, you also salute. Or if they say something shocking in the middle of the sentence, the non-active participants change their sprite, but not at the start, not at the end, in the middle of their speech, when that sentence is said, that word.
Nice.
Yeah, I was like, wait, that's so cool. Oftentimes, VNs have to choose between at the start or at the next text. So either too early or too late to react. But no, Meitetsu said, no, we'll be reacting in real time to words.
That's nice. Because otherwise you get the problem. If you don't have that break in the middle, you get that weird part where it's like, the commander walks in and says like, attention. And then like you either have the characters react with a salute at the start, where apparently the commander walked in and now it feels early. Or it's like at the end, and then it's like you're keenly aware this is a visual novel and it's just a product, and this is just when they get the chance to update their sprite.
Exactly. Yep, exactly.
So just having that little bit to just break in the middle makes it feel so much more like it's a living story that you're experiencing.
Yeah, exactly. And you have some natural conversation happening.
Yeah, that's really cool. So so even though this is about a visual novel where the heavy focus on trains, you're telling me it instead has the production values to be a stellar visual novel.
Yes, true. Exactly.
They should have done their story in a world run by visual novels instead.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh dear.
It's a wonderful title. I recommend it. But beware, you might actually really like trains after reading. Beware.
Oh, I've heard all the horror stories. People walking in because they thought, oh, it's a bunch of cute girls and a bunch of very familiar, comfy world. And then they're like, oh no, I'm addicted to trains now.
Yes, exactly.
Someday I may fall down that rabbit hole. It's up to you to save me if I fall too deep, MR.
Yes. Don't worry, I'll read to you the glossary, okay?
That's making it worse. God, never mind. I can't go to you. Ah.
Sorry, I've been tainted.
Oh, jeez. Well,
All
on
right.
that note, I'm going to cut this off before you taint me any further. And we will wrap up our episode for today on production value in visual novels. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope you look forward to seeing us again next week.
Thank you very much, and venture out.
VNture out.